herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe von Crop FM, der letzten in diesem Jahr. Der Titel der heutigen Sendung ist The Open Fields und mein Telefongast ist Michael Glickman. Und wer sich an dieser Sendung heute beteiligen möchte, kann das wie immer über den Cropcom tun. Erreichbar über die Website von Crop FM, cropfm.mur.at, kein www davor. Und dann auf Cropcom klicken, es sind schon einige da, 999, Eraser und Wingman. Einige werden wahrscheinlich noch kommen. Ich freue mich schon auf Fragen und Kommentare. Ja, wer uns mailen möchte, der kann das sehr gerne tun. Unter cropfm@mur.at erreicht man mich. Und ich lese alle Mails und freue mich über alle Mails, aber ich beantworte nicht immer alle. Also vor allem, wenn mir Leute so Newslinks schicken und so, nicht böse, wenn ich nicht immer antworte. Aber wenn ich die News interessant finde oder wenn sie gerade passen, dann stelle ich sie auf jeden Fall auf die Seite. Und ansonsten freue ich mich über die zahlreichen Anregungen, die immer wieder kommen zu allen möglichen Dingen. Und ja, cropfm@mur.at oder einfach auf den Mail-Link gehen. Und den Newsletter gibt es alle 2 Wochen und der enthält eine kurze Beschreibung der Sendung und wird dann meistens unmittelbar 1-2 Tage vor der Sendung ausgeschickt. Anmelden kann man sich auf der Website von Crop FM, cropfm.mur.at. Ja, und jetzt hat man wirklich endlich endgültig Wasser auf dem Mars gefunden oder nicht. Auf dem Mars fließt Wasser, so die Headline. Los Angeles, aus dem All aufgenommene Bilder deuten nach einer neuen Untersuchung darauf hin, dass auch heute Wasser auf dem Mars fließen bzw. in allerjüngster Zeit geflossen sein könnte. Die Fotos der NASA-Sonde Mars Global Surveyor zeigen laut der am Mittwoch im Wissenschaftsmagazin Science veröffentlichten Studie Veränderungen auf der Oberfläche, die diese Theorie stützen. Also man hat nicht das Wasser selbst gesehen, aber zumindest die Erosionsschäden. Hoagland hat diese vor 6 Jahren gesehen und ist genau zu denselben Schlüssen gekommen. Nun auch die NASA, hurra! Dennoch kann man sich des Eindrucks nicht erwehren, dass da gewisse Informationen nur tröpfchenweise weitergegeben werden. Ja, was auf dem Mars? Nichts Neues. Du sagst es, 999. Riddle of UFO invasion. A UFO scare was sparked after the police were flooded with calls about a fleet of spaceships invading the coast of Britain. I saw this big orange light in the sky, then another one appeared in mid-air, then another one, and another. Experts are baffled by the phenomenon, but believe it could be linked to a meteor shower. Ja, und die NASA möchte am Südpol des Mondes eine Basisstation errichten. Washington mit einer internationalen Station auf dem Mond will die US-Raumfahrtbehörde NASA die Erschließung des Weltraums vorantreiben. Die Mondbasis soll laut NASA der Ausgangspunkt zur weiteren Erforschung des Alls und zur Ausweitung der menschlichen Zivilisation sein. Man höre und staune. Und als nächsten Schritt wird bereits der Mars ins Auge genommen. Ich frage mich warum. Vielleicht ist er doch nicht ganz der tote Planet, für den man ihn bisher gehalten hat. Und wenn ich mir dort auch kein Ferienhäuschen bauen würde, zu Forschungszwecken hinzufliegen, zahlt sich allemal aus, denke ich. Saddams Komplize. Saddam Hussein ist zum Tode verurteilt. Er wurde verurteilt für Verbrechen, die er mehr als ein Jahr vor Donald Rumsfelds Bagdader Händedruck begangen hatte. Ein historischer Rückblick zeigt uns die Fakten. Und dann wird auf diesem, in der News-Sektion, wie alle hier vorgelesenen verlinkten Artikel, dann ein kleiner Abriss gegeben der Untaten und der Verstrickungen, unter anderem eines gewissen Donald Rumsfelds, der ja letzte Woche dann abgedankt hat. Vielleicht, weil sein Freund in Bagdad nun keinen Grund mehr hat zu schweigen, oder? Das ist jetzt nur eine böse Vermutung. Ja, und dann zu guter Letzt noch einmal einer jener großartigen Entdeckungen, die dann in einem schwarzen Loch verschwinden. Take water and potash and add electricity and get a mystery. British researchers believe that they have made a groundbreaking scientific discovery after apparently managing to create energy from hydrogen atoms. Und ich freue mich immer wieder, wenn ich solche Artikel lese oder Links dazu bekomme, und ich frage mich dann aber, wo sind die Produkte? Wir haben es ja mit Willi erlebt, das ist alles nicht so einfach. Dennoch zum Beispiel dieser Herr, der in Irland da vor ein paar Monaten eine noch viel more groundbreaking Discovery gemacht hat, aber seitdem, wie alle anderen, in der Versenkung verschwand. Tja, und am Ende der News heute ein bisschen nachdenkliches Stück. Und zwar mein Vater, der sich gerade in Bagdad aufhält, den habe ich vor circa 2 Wochen zu der Situation in dieser Stadt befragt, und wie man unschwer vermuten möchte, kommt dort, obwohl es doch eine erkleckliche Anzahl an Christen gibt, auch im Irak, keine so rechte Weihnachtsstimmung auf. Ja, hier nun Suher Al-Ubaidi in einem aufgezeichneten Interview zur Situation in Bagdad, übrigens aufgenommen unmittelbar nach den verheerenden Anschlägen, wo über 200 Schiiten ums Leben gekommen sind und wo dann eine Ausgangssperre verhängt wurde. Ja, Weihnachten in Bagdad.
In Bagdad ist ein Ausgehverbot seit Donnerstag. Heute, die Minister haben ein Treffen und gestern auch, und haben ihre Einigkeit zugestimmt gegen die Bomben, was am Donnerstag in Al-Fadr City, was über 200 Leute waren tot und verbunden. Heute hat man eine Hoffnung, dass morgen das Ausgehverbot wird aufgehoben. Es ist Bagdad wie in eine neue Texas geworden. Alle haben Waffen und man kennt sie nicht. Manche ziehen ihre Militär- bzw. Polizeianzüge und gehen durch die Gassen und die Häuser und töten, wenn sie wollen. Es ist schrecklich, aber Gott sei Dank, wir sind noch immer nicht in einer Situation, dass man sagen kann, es ist eine Volksaufstehung oder ein zwischen Schiiten und Sunniten oder was Ähnliches. Das Volk ist wirklich sehr geduldig. Morgen hofft man, dass dieses Ausgehverbot wird aufgehoben. Ja, es ist Bomben explodieren und Autobomben explodieren täglich. Das Ausgehverbot ist tödlich auch für das Volk. Die können nicht alle daheim bleiben, manche haben nur ein tägliches Einkommen und die müssen ihre Arbeit tun. Es sind mehrere Seiten daran interessiert, dass die Unruhe bleibt. Es gibt mehrere Gruppen, die sind unterstützt von bestimmten Seiten. Sei es Nachbarländer, Fanatiker, Saddam-Anhänger, Al-Qaida und ihre Fanatiker und die blinde Anhänger Geld geben und unterstützen von Saddam-Familie, aber auch von Saddam-Kreis, von Ministern, alten Ministern und verschiedene Persönlichkeiten. Die Amerikaner können nicht abziehen, weil die sind schuld an dieser Schlamassel seit ihr Einmarsch in Irak. Ja, früher war mindestens jeder kann machen, was er will, nur nicht gegen Saddam. Heute ist alles durcheinander. Man behauptet auch, dass die Amerikaner haben auch ein Interesse an, dass diese Unruhe bleibt, dass sie auch bleiben. Morgen oder übermorgen ist ein Treffen zwischen Al-Maliki, dem Ministerpräsident von Irak, der neu gewählte, und Bush in Amman. Ja? Und wenn der Militär in Irak insgesamt, und speziell in Bagdad, wenn er nicht unter der Maliki und der irakischen Regierung geht, dann ist noch immer keine Lösung. Ja, die Leute sind wirklich, haben ihr Geduld bewiesen, sonst wäre jetzt ein Krieg zwischen Schiiten und Sunniten, Kurden und Subbiten, Türken und Assuriten. Gott sei Dank, bis jetzt sind davon bewahrt.
Ja, und das ist vielleicht eher ein kleines Weihnachtswunder für sich. Ja, bei mir am Telefon jetzt Michael Glickman. Er war schon zweimal zu Gast, zu meiner großen Freude, und das war jetzt ziemlich eigentlich Glück, dass ich ihn erwischt habe, weil aus irgendeinem Grund hat er angenommen, die Sendung fände am Mittwoch statt. Michael Glickman, also der Architekturprofessor, der auch in Kalifornien unter anderem gewirkt hat und der vor 16 Jahren seinen ersten Kornkreis betreten hat und nie mehr so richtig rausgekommen ist, wie er sagt. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening, Tarek.
Great to have you on, and happy that we finally made it. For some reason you thought it would be Wednesday. Maybe I miscommunicated.
Well, yeah,
who knows?
I must be getting old.
Well, but anyway, great that we're on the air tonight together. And our last interview is quite some time ago. I would say it was. I aired it about this time. I listened to it again today, and I aired it about this time exactly 2 years ago. So
How long was that?
Yes, 2 years.
Okay.
2 years. When I last visited you in Horton, that was 2004.
Okay.
So 2 years passed. A lot has happened.
Yeah.
There was a very fascinating season of 2005 that no one really seemed to talk about, which was really strange. And a very strange season 2006.
Yeah.
I was there. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet because you were traveling the world, I think. You were, when I was calling you, were just about to leave to some place. I don't remember where. And but now at least we virtually can meet on the phone.
Yes.
So what was your impression of this year's season?
I thought it was, as always, most interesting, and there were fewer formations than usual, but some extraordinary individual formations. I have to say that, in a way, I don't want to say I've stepped back from the crop circles, but I seem to be taking a larger view of the way things are going. So I'm spending less and less time on the design and geometry of individual formations, and more time thinking about the bigger picture of perhaps what is going on.
Yeah, and that's also the subject of our interview tonight. I mean, I called the show The Open Field because I think that's a nice synonym for what it is. I mean, it's something is happening on the fields, and what is happening really is, to me, and to many people at least, a mystery.
Yeah.
And everyone has this sense of, almost this sense of urgency that something is happening.
Yes, certainly something is happening.
Yeah, but no one can really put his finger on it. And there are thousands of names for what we're talking about tonight, or try to talk about tonight. The shift, frequency shift, then of course 2012, and
yes.
I mean, so many words for something that can't be grasped. What?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, frequency shift, consciousness shift, dimensional shift, vibrational shift, I don't know, but it's a shift. I mean, I tend to prefer the idea of dimensional shift because I think we are moving very rapidly. We're already well along the road from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, which will bring us another level of consciousness. And I believe that there are 4 triggers. I mean, I don't like to use a military word, but I think there are 4 triggers which are already in place to help with this shift, and some are about to arrive. I think we're going to experience astonishing things. Obviously, by 2012, which the whole thing is lined up for, but I believe things have been moving into place very, very substantially for several years. I think we're already well along the path of this shift.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us who follow things like the development of crop circles or UFOs, I mean, for God's sake, I had Jaime Maussan, who you might have heard of, on a couple of months ago, and he talked about, among other things, these recent things that happened with Space Shuttle Atlantis on the landing, and of course we had those 2004 sightings that we also talked about in our last show.
Yes.
And so there is a lot happening if you care to look at, but for the ordinary dude, I think it's very difficult to get a grasp of what is happening if you're just watching daily news and just mass media.
You learn nothing from the daily news.
Yeah.
But you see, I think we need to realize that we're in material terms, there are several things in place which are, if you like, tangible and digestible in conventional terms. And let me go through what I think are the four triggers which are going to have an amazing impact on our global consciousness.
Please. Yeah.
Number one is the end of an oil-based economy. We're living in an absolutely lunatic world in which, on the one hand, every single thinking individual on the planet knows that the planet is being destroyed by fossil fuels. There are very few people who would argue with that. The planet is being destroyed by our reliance on oil. Number one. On the other hand, and this is, if you step away from it, the most paradoxical thing in the world, that what is the commodity for which great powers will go to war and kill hundreds of thousands of people? Oil. So this species is in a paradoxical position of treasuring above all that which will poison its own habitat. This is an extraordinary thing.
Surely is, yeah.
But it's real. And here we are. The wars in the Middle East are very substantially based on the requirement for oil, against which there is not a single motor company in the world which does not have an electrical car, a hydrogen car, some alternative propulsion ready, because they all know oil-based economy is dead. There is not a petrol company in the world which does not have a department working on alternative energy sources, because it knows that it's dead. So here we're going to face a problem of consciousness like we've never faced before. This is going to be a cataclysmic technological change and consciousness change. It will contribute to the dimensional shift. The other thing, which is already starting to contribute to the dimensional shift or the consciousness shift, is the existence of the internet, the web. Now, at one level, you can look at the web and it truly is the sewer of human consciousness in many respects. But in other respects, the web is a parallel of the Akashic record of a unified human consciousness, and it's developing very rapidly, and it is shifting our ability to grasp the world. The other thing, which I think is going to be a trigger of amazing shifts over the past few years, and I don't want to talk about this in too much depth, but I want to mention it, is the 9/11 Twin Towers events. I think that within the next year, 2 years, 3 years, the truth about that event will come out, and that will be cataclysmic. And the final thing, number 4, which I think will be cataclysmic, which started with the crop circles, will be a real, comprehensive, and undeniable experience of other consciousnesses. I believe there will be prior to 2012, a manifestation of non-earthly beings which will be handled at such a scale that it can no longer be denied. I believe that this will take place, well, I think it started to take place with the crop circles, but I think it's going to take place, I wasn't sure when, but I think we are going to witness massive fleets flying by within months. Fleets of visitors who have so much concern for us that they won't attempt to land. They will simply appear and then go away. But it will be undeniable, and it'll happen more and more and more.
That's very interesting you say that. I mean, of course, one of your statements from our last interview that a lot of people kept in mind was tangible contact with extraterrestrial being within the next 4 to 5 years.
Yes.
But just recently, I think in the last show, I had an article, a journal entry by Whitley Strieber,
Yes.
who said exactly that. He said that, I forgot the person who he actually cited, but that
a guy in Brazil.
Oh yes, a guy in Brazil, exactly.
I think he's called Allem, and he has been receiving communications for many years,
yeah.
And he gave a bracket of November, the last month, to the end of April. Now, I've spoken to a friend and colleague in California for whom I have great respect, and he closes this in very specifically to the month of March in the coming year. Now, one of the interesting things he puts forward is the idea of a 5 and 10 year cycle, that one can look at events in the crop circle, the crop circle narrative, which seem to focus on a 10-year event series, a 10 and 5-year event series starting in 91, specifically with Barbary Castle, and then in 96, the Oliver's Castle balls of light, citing a video which showed the way a crop circle was being formed 5 years, and then bringing it to 10 years was 2001, which was the gigantic Milk Hill formation. So this was, if you like, the 5-year, 10-year bracket, which would bring us up in the future to 2011. But the other thing which is very interesting is that the Phoenix Lights event occurred 96, I think.
97, I think.
Or 97, was
yes.
it? So we're coming up to another sighting if you take this kind of phasing of events in this kind of way.
Yeah, well, 97 would be 50 years after Roswell, but well.
Really?
Yeah, well, 1947 was, but anyway.
So we seem to be speeding up, and I think all these things are going to be very stressful for the planet, very stressful for the existing structures, the social, legal structures, And I think what is very important is that it's critical for individuals to handle this in as calm and spiritual a way as possible.
Michael, just you mentioned in 1996 there was a video of the formation of a crop circle.
Yes.
Because funnily enough, 2 days ago I received a mail from a listener who pointed out this video to me, which is available on Google Video, I think, and I can send you the link where you can see 2 or 3 balls of light, 4, well, I don't know, gliding over a field, and then a formation with a circle in the middle, and 6 lines of circle on
6 arms.
Yes. So you're talking about this video.
Yes, the Oliver's Castle video.
And this is a genuine video because I've seen a DVD on crop circles where they said that this later turned out to be a hoax because the person who made it or allegedly made it, more or less admitted up to it. But I looked at it and I thought to myself, well, that's a damn good hoax. So you're saying that's not a hoax?
I know it is not a hoax.
Oh boy. Okay.
I was very, very closely involved with this formation. I measured this formation. I went into this formation several times, and the attempts to debunk it have been strident and vehement, and they say, "Oh, somebody confessed." Well, let me tell you the truth. I will now confess that I killed President Kennedy.
Oh, bad boy.
Yeah. I mean, confessions in this business are meaningless. There was never a follow-up to this confession. There was never a motive to the confession.
Okay.
The confession was used simply to justify the idea that this event was a hoax, but there was never any substantial backup to this. And in fact, if you simply view this piece of video, it goes straight to your heart. It's very, very moving. And indeed, the other thing which is very important is that for several years after the appearance of the Oliver's Castle video, there were other sightings. None of them were in fact recorded on video, but they were well-witnessed sightings of luminosities, balls of light, behaving in a very similar way above formations or above the sites of formations. So that if the Oliver's Castle video was a hoax, it's a work of astonishing art, and it's also amazingly prophetic, because they not only knew how it was made, but they knew years in advance of what was going to be repeated sequentially year after year after year. And this I find beyond belief. How did they do that?
Yeah, sorry, who are they now?
Well, the supposed hoaxers.
All right. So because in this video, I think I remember to have heard the guy giving the statement on film that he was the guy who hoaxed the video, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Well, in any case, it is a very, very, very astonishing piece of footage. If this is not an elaborate, and I have to say, it would have been a very great piece of work if someone would have hoaxed that.
And he had something like 24 hours to put this together.
Oh, well.
The supposed hoaxer, the guy who made the film, came to the Barge Inn on a Saturday night and said, I'm going out circle spotting. I'm going to spend the night on Oliver's Castle. Does anybody want to come with me? It was the wettest weekend of the summer, and nobody went with him. In the morning, at dawn, he was woken up by strange noises, and he stood up and saw balls of light in the field below. His camera would not work at first because the air was so damp, but he then started to film the balls of light. He did not see the circle forming underneath. He went home to Bristol, which is an hour and a half away, to change into dry clothes. And in Bristol, he showed the film through his own television set. And at this point, he noticed the circle underneath.
That is forming.
He then called several researchers and agreed to meet them at the barge. And that evening showed the film he'd taken in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
So there is no way he could have produced a Hollywood-level piece of computer-generated hoax like this in that time, without a laboratory, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always a way, but I'm really... I mean, what would be the motive? Because this video, I mean, no one... rarely people... this has never been really shown anywhere. I mean, it's not been shown on television. I mean, for God's sakes, we see balls of light forming a crop formation, and someone catches it on video, and it just vanishes into nowhere, which is just...
Well, I tell you, I've got 6 videos that I sell. And this piece of footage has been on my video number 4 for 10 years? No, less, but 8 years. It's been on my video, and it's been all over the world. Nobody has ever come back and said this is a fraud. And I've shown this piece of video in Hollywood in front of audiences of people, among whom were many film technicians. And nobody ever said it's a fraud. People said, oh yes, we could have done this, but it would take months and it would cost thousands of dollars, and we couldn't see the way it was done.
Yeah, I mean, C-Lab or Clap in the chat, we have a chat running where people can ask questions, says, fake, I don't think so. I mean, he writes in German, I translate here. I don't think so because I'm doing 3D graphics. So, obviously people who know about 3D graphics, I know a little bit about it, and seeing that video, they immediately must say, that's an astonishing piece of work. In any case, just to be sure, I will send you the link to Google Video, Michael, if you could tell me that this is really the real thing, then I will.
Well, there's only one piece of video. It is the one.
All right.
It's 4 balls of light in 2 pairs, and they come across the field, and the first one loops around, and as it loops around, the formation appears from the center circle and moves outwards along its 6 arms.
One big
and then
circle.
the second pair of lights comes almost as though they were inspecting the work.
Mm. Yeah, I think we're talking about the same video, so I'm going to link it up with the show because this is just phenomenal. And I saw this video, and you were, for example, on this video where this was shown. I don't know exactly where, and it was a big group of people. You were all very excited, and then this guy comes up and says, "Well, I did it. It was a fake," and it's depressing almost. You know, I mean.
Yeah, but I repeat to you, I killed President Kennedy.
Yeah.
Do you believe me?
Well, I don't have a way of really telling, but I'm in a bit of a doubt.
Right. Well, let me be very specific. I believe the person who claimed he faked the Oliver's Castle video is a foul liar.
Okay. Well, I have no idea what motives this guy has to make such a statement. So.
Well, you see, you say that. You have to understand that there is a very powerful urge in humanity, and certainly among the crop circle community too, which is, after all, a part of humanity. There is a powerful urge not to allow the world to change. And many people are terrified of the crop circles, and they're even more terrified of evidence that the crop circles might be real and astonishing, and might be knocking on the door of a substantial world change. This is very scary to a lot of people.
Yeah. And when you say real, of course, I mean, obviously every crop circle is real, but some of them are faked. And when we last time talked, those that were faked, the guys doing it got better by the minute.
Yes.
And what happened since? I didn't really get any information on faked formations in 2004. I've heard, or I've read an article when I was in England, that one of the guys who allegedly faked those formations committed suicide. Actually.
Well, look, I mean, this is there's a guy who actually lived in my village who killed himself. He wasn't well known. I had never heard of him before.
Oh, okay.
And he was certainly the kind of bloke who would have joined a team to make a crop circle occasionally. I don't know. I'd never heard of him. He certainly wasn't a leading member of the hoaxing community. And, of course, the fact that he killed himself brings him to public notice. But quite honestly, this is not the only human being who has committed suicide.
No, surely not, no.
And I think he was a very insignificant member of the hoaxing community. I don't think it has any real bearing. I think it had a bearing on the nature of his life and his relationships. It had no bearing at all on the crop circles.
Okay. Now back to our subject for tonight. I mean, crop circles, a means of communication, a means of contact, and of course behind the crop circle there's an intelligence that seems to step out more and more of the foggy, glamorous stories that we're being told for decades now. And you saying that within the next half year, this is a very astonishing statement you make.
Well, look, with all these statements, I can only say that this is a speculation, a hypothesis. Anybody who makes a prophecy about the future knows how dangerous it is. But I believe it is at least possible. And in view of the way things have been moving, I believe it is likely.
Yeah.
Now, if we speak in a year and you say, Michael, it didn't happen, I will have to shrug my shoulders and say, well, I'm very sorry. I simply spoke sincerely about what I happened to believe at the time.
Yeah.
And I really do feel that we are on the edge of a major shift in our relationship with our visitors and our cousins.
And you say you say that about that 11 star nations want to get into contact with us.
A federation of 11 of them, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so when you say contact, of course, you mean real contact. I mean, landings, etc. What kind of contact do you, for example, have? I mean, somehow you must get all the information that you also tell us tonight. So, and in the last show you said,
I don't. It's not as though someone knocks on my door and comes in and says, "This is what's happening, Michael." I have no contact at that level, but I do believe that the circle-making authors, the authors of the circles, are telepathic and interactive. And I believe, and I think most people working in the crop circles believe, that there is a low level of telepathy and interaction occurring between the crop circle initiators and the researchers. There seems to be a closeness. They seem to know what we are doing. And we all have the sense that we are in some way aided or guided in our work. Now, I know in saying this that there is a real risk of some sort of egotism, of feeling that we are in some way special. I don't think we are special. I just think that we have taken the choice to be involved in this work, and part of our involvement in this work seems to be a certain communication with the way the phenomenon is developing.
Yeah. So, of course, as you said, I mean, there's no one knocking at your door, sitting down with you and saying, well, that's what's going to happen, these are the dates, blah, blah, blah. But this kind of communication is, I mean, some call it channeling, some call it intuition, whatever. Yeah. It is, you also can't really put your finger on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, and well, people can believe you or not.
Yes.
It's their free choice.
It's as simple as that. I mean, I have felt very strongly that there would be an increasing level of the stages of communication. I mean, here on Earth, we are we have a very crude and material way of dealing with things. So we expect always that flying saucers will land on the White House lawn. This is the old thing, you know. If there's anybody there, why don't they come and talk to us, you know? Well, I suspect that they are too clever. They know us better than we know ourselves, and it will be like landing in the grounds of a lunatic asylum where the lunatics are armed.
Oh boy, yes.
So they work very carefully to plan exactly how they can most easily make their contact. And it will be in stages. I think if they simply landed, being a volatile and aggressive species we would throw nuclear weapons at them, you know. I mean, it would be very, very silly of them to land directly. And I have felt for a long time that their first approach has been the crop circles. And the result of the crop circles has been very simply that we have become aware that there seems to be another intelligence saying hello to us. But it's very gentle. And those of us who cannot bear this are simply able to turn away and say, oh, they're all man-made, it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is step one. What then is going to be step two? They certainly won't plunge into landing in our city centres and make everybody freak out and go mad. What they will do as step two, I think, is to organise a gigantic flyby, an aerial display of hundreds or thousands of vehicles at such a level that they come, they stay for an hour or so, everybody in the world sees them, they go away. It is undeniable. And this will be stage two, and this will be a real shock. And stage two, a simple display, will be repeated many times over months. And it will cause an absolute problem with planet Earth, because the scientists will not be able to deny it, the military forces will not be able to deny it, the politicians will not be able to deny it, the religious authorities will not be able to deny it, and it will be a presence in the daily, ordinary life of our planet that visitors appear. Now, stage three will be that we're going to have to say, we are not able to deal aggressively with this strangeness in the world and to kill it, which is what intuitively many earthlings would like to do. It will be made very clear that there are too many of them, they're too advanced, they are invulnerable to our pathetic weapons, and that by inference we could see that if they wished us any harm here, they could have organized this harm 500 years ago. They don't want to harm us, they want to help us. And that will be stage three, that we are going to have to shift the consciousness of the world to understanding that these visitors are very much on our side. And stage four, which will come sometime between 07 and 2012, will be actual landings and manifestations. But that won't happen until stage three, which is probably going to be the most difficult stage, has been gone through.
So, and as it seems, stage two might begin in March.
Yes.
All right.
That's only a suggestion, but it doesn't seem to be a mad suggestion. I mean, it will be seen to be a mad suggestion when it doesn't happen, and I am seen to be crazy. But I'm prepared to take that risk. I think it might well happen in March. Yes.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. I mean, and of course, a lot of people are actually waiting on something like this to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on the edge of their seat, and although I have to say there's a certain kind of danger in that as well. Of course, if you focus too much on such an external event, I think we should maybe sometimes focus on ourselves and then let happen whatever happens.
Well, certainly. I mean, I think we all need to work as hard as possible to prepare ourselves for this.
Yeah. For example, some comments I can read in the chat tell me that a lot of people have a lot of work still to do. Anyway, now you mentioned before that there are going to be 4 triggers, and one of them, the first one, is interested me, actually triggered something in me. I mean, of course, you heard of Stephen Greer, I guess.
Yes.
And he's actually saying that he says that those star nations that are visiting us use a different kind of propulsion system.
Yes.
That shouldn't surprise anyone. And which allows them to, overcome great distances. And this base technology can also be used, of course, for normal transportations. I mean, you don't need to fly between the stars. You can also...
Yes.
So, and what Stephen Greer and hundreds of others are saying is that we well know about that stuff. We are using that stuff, but we are not selling that stuff because oil is such a good... it's a good way to make money. It actually isn't, but for some people they think it is anyway. So, will some of this secret technology come to the surface? Is that what you're referring to when you say this trigger that?
Yes, I believe these technologies will become available to us, but they will not become available to us as we now would like. What we would now like is to get on our hands on these technologies, A, to make a lot of money, and B, to kill lots of people. And they will not have this. I mean, if there is an absolute principle behind the shift that we're about to enter, it is the principle of an enhanced human spirit. There is no way that we will be allowed to join the Federation while we remain greedy, acquisitive, aggressive, violent. We simply won't get in.
Yeah, and right so. I mean, I wouldn't let us in.
Yeah.
I mean, and as you said before, I wouldn't land anywhere.
No.
If I would be an extraterrestrial, no. I would maybe watch from the distance, but that's it.
Yes.
And, I mean, we're still entangled with, everyone needs a bad guy, you know. I mean, a lot of people think the Jews must be the bad guys. A lot of Arabs think the Jews must be the bad guys. Others think that, I don't know someone always is the bad guy, and there's always a reason for war.
Someone else.
Yes,
and we never realize that we are ourselves the bad guy.
Yeah. And we just have to stop that, and then maybe there will be some progress here. But, so, do you think there was progress enough yet so that...
No.
Yeah.
No. And I think some of these shocks will be devastating and will cause an enormous shift in consciousness. For example, I think that our visitors are going to, when they appear, are going to demonstrate that it is possible to lead a life based completely on priorities enormously different from ours. and that I think one of the real difficulties for us is the idea that here are beings knocking on our door, and they do not want to sell us anything. They don't want anything. They don't want to take anything away. They don't want money from us. They are concerned simply for our development and evolution. And this is very, very difficult for a human being to accept.
Yeah.
And it's only when we start to realize the possibility of that we will start to accept the possibility of a transformation at a personal level and at a global and planetary level. And I think that things are getting so critical here on the planet that the best hope we have is a meeting with these beings who are able to demonstrate to us that a gracious existence is possible. A spiritual life is possible. And better. And that all the brutality and aggression that we now live with is simply not necessary. But again, what do I know? I can only speculate.
Yeah. I shortly have to comment on the chat. I mean, Krusty the Clown is putting some strange messages in there that are totally off topic.
I'm sorry.
Well, yes. It's really, I don't know how he gets there anyway. I mean, yes, Krusty, there's a lot of things in history, and we're talking about the recent history, of course, that have been rewritten, and the winners write history.
Yes.
But still, I mean, I don't know. Phew. Anyway, back to our subject here. So, we need a shift as badly as a piece of bread, I think. Because with what we are doing here is we're just not able to sustain a planet of 6 billion people. I mean,
no.
I'm sorry. And it's very interesting comments of Krusty the Clown, as he calls him in the chat. I mean, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's why we're not able to sustain 6 billion people on this planet, because we can't stop picking on each other. It's just, and you know what I think, if now this extraterrestrial thing comes into place, there will be people who will, we have this Ausländer raus Bewegung in Germany you might have heard of, or in Austria, where you say, we don't want any foreigners in here. We'll have the extraterrestrial out movement, where, people are afraid that... and actually, I mean, when it has been shown that when a highly advanced civilization gets in contact with a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization virtually vanishes.
Yeah.
So... do you think that our civilization will then vanish after we get in contact with those beings?
Well, I think the reason they have stayed away for so long is because they have been obeying this law forever. I mean, if you remember Star Trek, which was very clever, the Star Trek crews obeyed what was called the Prime Directive, which was they would never, under any circumstances, interfere with a less evolved civilization. Now, I believe that our cousins, our visitors, obey this absolutely rigorously. And they're moving in now because our position is so catastrophic that we are about to destroy the species and to destroy the planet. And I think this would be a cosmic and universal crisis which they cannot allow to happen. And I believe they're now facing what is for them an absolute difficulty, which is the breaking of their respect for the prime directive, not to interfere with the affairs of a less evolved species. So I believe their communication with us, first through the crop circles and eventually through whatever is going to happen, is the result of an enormous examination of conscience and consciousness on their part when faced with very clear evidence that we are committing suicide. I think they are being forced to move in, to intervene in a critical cosmic crisis. And it is for this reason that it's being planned so carefully in a series of stages. Stage 1 being the crop circles, stage 2 being mass flyby.
Yeah. Someone poses an interesting question in the chat after all. Clapp wants to know why this is happening now and not 60 years ago after we dropped the first bomb. But actually it did start then, didn't it?
I think because the situation has clearly become more and more and more critical. Yeah. I mean, we dropped the first atomic bomb in 1945, but we had not, at that stage, started so vigorously to destroy the water and the air of the planet. Since that time, in 50 years, more 60, we've shown just how poisonous our activities are. So I think they are forced to intervene now.
Which is, as you say, I mean, which must be a huge step.
Yes.
For them.
It is.
Now, of course, there are a lot of phenomena taking place, and it's not only crop circles. It's also cattle mutilations and animal mutilations, and allegedly, of course, I haven't ever seen that, but in photo, human mutilations. And there is the abduction phenomenon. How does this tie in? Are there two sides out there? Because those things don't seem very beneficial to me. I mean, what's your take on that?
I have to say I am unclear. I'm very worried that we are spring-loaded to look for fear and conspiracy and paranoia and terror. And you know, one of the beautiful things about the crop circles is that as a phenomenon, it has remained entirely benign. There's never been a dark side to it. The UFO phenomenon, however, and I do not know whether the UFO phenomenon is benign or aggressive or intrusive or whatever, but I do know that one of the interesting ways of looking at a strange phenomenon is to study the effect it has on human beings. Crop circles have a very light effect on human beings. They have a very spiritual effect on human beings. UFOs, flying saucers, ETs, seem to attract the nuts and bolts mechanical side of humanity. In the old days when I was working in California, I often spoke at meetings of MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, and I would start by saying, I'm going to talk about crop circles. I cannot give you any information about CIA or military involvement, nor can I tell you about paranoia or conspiracies. People would get up and walk out. They couldn't bear this.
Yeah.
They wanted horror stories.
Mm.
And there are many people, many crop circle researchers, who are desperate to find a link between the crop circles and the military, between the crop circles and government conspiracy, between the crop circles and cattle mutilation. And in a way, this is more a reflection of human consciousness than it is of any discernible reality. I'm very worried about the whole crop circle, the whole mutilation, abduction thing. I do not know where it's coming from or where it's going to, but I believe it to be a separate spirit from that which is involved with the crop circles.
So you think that those 11 star nations, the Federation, are not involved in any of those activities?
I believe not.
Mm-hmm.
I believe not. I would like... Look, much of what I say has got to be based on my own prejudices and wishes. Anyway, obviously it is. I mean, I think there are many UFO researchers who truly are attracted to the dark side of things, to the paranoia and the conspiracy and the mutilations. I seem personally to be repelled by all this, so I don't, and in many respects this makes me a poor researcher because of my personal prejudices.
Yeah. So you just not divulge yourself into those dark sides of...
No, because I've never seen any reality to much of this.
Yeah.
I do believe there are abductions. I do believe there are cattle mutilations. I also believe that there are many, many sides to these stories. And if, for instance, you read the books of John Mack, for example,
yeah.
he deals very carefully with the abductions, but deals with the abductions in a thoughtful and open and inquiring way, which seems to put forward the possibility that they might be in some way consciousness expanding. He certainly doesn't deal with the whole UFO ET abduction thing as though it were automatically threatening and dark. And I think one of the problems we must face is the fact that we all as individuals bring our own position to bear on the external facts.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people do very well, let's say, balanced research between the dark and the light. Like also Mr. Jacobs. Well, he does. He more divulges into the dark side. I guess you heard of a gentleman called Jacobs, I think is his name.
Yes.
Yeah, he who is convinced that this is a very dark phenomena. And I mean, I still think, and I mean, also the last guest I had on, we were talking about this, that there are two sides out there, I think.
Who was that last guest?
It was a guy from Germany, Oliver Gerschitz, and he wrote a book on the Philadelphia experiment, where, well, I mean, he has very ideas that are quite far out there, but very interesting nonetheless. And he thinks that there are two sides out there battling, more or less. So,
well, this might be so. You see, I let me put another hypothesis forward, which is very interesting. Societies develop, and we don't know how they develop, but humanity has existed for some millennia on this planet, and we've now reached an absolutely crucial moment, which, in terms of the history of the planet, is simply a few minutes, and we are here. And we are here in the few minutes at which our technologies are hugely greater than our spirituality.
Yeah.
We are out of control of our technologies. Now, clearly, we on planet Earth as human beings are faced with two doorways. Doorway A, we destroy ourselves and the planet. Doorway B, we become spiritual and learn to live together and learn to cooperate, and we have a future. If we go through doorway B, we'll stop spending fortunes on armaments and instead spend fortunes on education and health, and think carefully about how we're going to deal with the communities that live here, the communities of humanity, the communities of animals, the communities of vegetation, and we will design it all for a long and sustainable future. So we are faced with this critical moment, door A or door B. Now, if we take this hypothesis forward, it's not hard to imagine that every civilization on every planet in the universe reached this critical point, and they either took door A and became extinct, or they took door B, and they then must be, by definition, evolved spiritually. If they are there, they are spiritual beings. Now, I rely on this very profoundly. I feel that the crop circle makers and our visitors are very, very likely to be civilizations that have taken door B towards cooperation and spirituality.
Yeah.
I believe that there are very few left who've taken door A.
Well,
We clearly, at the moment, are taking door A. Destruction of the planet, destruction of each other, mindless aggression and greed.
Oh, yeah.
And we won't survive unless we get some help.
Exactly. No, it's an endless game of revenge, and as long as this doesn't stop, we're going to continue through the path A and end up where the others ended up.
Yes.
In a black hole.
In the black hole.
Well, we're coming to the end of this show tonight, and which I really enjoyed. On our last interview, we talked about something very recent. It was very recent when we talked in 2004. It's those hole punch phenomena in clouds.
In clouds, yes.
When I was in Wiltshire this year, I also met with Pat Angoff, who is a psychic, and she met with beings apparently that were just beside the crop circle and that made them, and so on and so on. Very in a way crazy story, but very interesting and fascinating. And those beings told her that something new is coming. Could this new thing? I mean, is it this visitation that this direct contact?
I don't know, but it could be.
Yeah.
I hope it is.
Yeah.
I hope it is.
Because that would fit together. Something else that came into my mind is, well, of course this is a bit blunt, but it could be sky formations. Crop circles, they can be explained. But a sky formation would clearly be another trigger.
Sure.
Now we had those hearts in the sky, which do appear and which are unexplainable. But if we had a more complex formation in the sky, it's just no.
Well, for many years, crop circle people have been saying, I've been talking about the idea of sky formations. And it's a very, very interesting notion. And indeed, maybe the sky formations are the visitation. Maybe the visitation of craft, of vehicles in the sky, will be the sky formations.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm. Well,
I don't know.
But
it's a very exciting time to be alive.
Oh, it is. And I think we should schedule another show for this summer.
Whenever you like.
Yeah, great. I will get in contact with you because definitely we should. Who knows what's going to happen in the next half year? We are on the brink, and something is moving. If you look at the Middle East, they even recommend to the White House that they start to talk to Syria, and So I have this feeling that something is starting to move here. And,
yes.
And as this gentleman from, I think, Brazil, he was in this journal entry from Whitley Strieber said, the conditions have never been so good for a first contact.
This is true.
Yeah, and although I have to say, I'm not sure if this. I'm convinced it's not a good thing that those beings are being forced to let down their first directive that they never directly engage with.
Yeah.
So I think when we actually do see those ships, that's not a too good sign.
Well, look, I think this stage 3 is going to be the biggest test that humanity has ever faced. Stage 2, the ships will show themselves. Stage 3, we are going to have to find a way of dealing with the absolute reality of the terrifying fact that we are not alone. And after that comes an even more terrifying fact, and that is not only are we not alone, but that the others are more evolved than we are. And how, after our history, we're going to be able to deal with this is very scary.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And as you said, we're living in most exciting times, and I'm very happy that you were here again, once again, to give us your thoughts about them. And I'm looking forward to another show in 2007.
For sure.
Where we will look back on whatever happens in the next 6 months.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Have a nice evening and we'll stay in contact.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Das war Michael Glickman, ein sehr interessanter Mann mit sehr interessanten Ideen und ja, auch er ist natürlich nicht allwissend, wie keiner. Und alles, was er da von sich gibt, ist seine eigene Meinung. Und man kann diese glauben oder nicht. Das bleibt jedem selbst überlassen. Glauben. Ich meine, das Ganze kann nie mehr als eine Anregung sein, selbst nachzudenken. Tut mir leid. Ja, im Chat, sorry, aber ich habe da eine eher böse Meldung auch reingeschrieben, weil ich einfach finde, ich verstehe nicht ganz, der ging heute irgendwie da in eine ganz andere Richtung. Okay, ich meine, vieles in unserer Geschichte, die Geschichte wird immer von den Gewinnern geschrieben, natürlich. Aber dann auch, also, ich weiß nicht. Egal. Jedenfalls ansonsten danke für die zum Teil sehr schönen und interessanten Kommentare im Chat und auch Fragen. Wie immer. Und ja, wir sehen uns jetzt, hören uns jetzt eine Zeit lang nicht. Ich werde jetzt eine Pause machen, Weihnachtspause, Neujahrpause. Und wir hören und lesen uns dann wieder am 19.01.2006. Und da wird bei mir zu Gast sein, dann wieder mal live im Studio und auf Deutsch. Da gab es auch einige Verwirrung. Also der im Interview bei den News, das war mein Vater und dann war Michael Glickman und der kann nicht Deutsch. Stimme hat vielleicht ähnlich geklungen. Anyway, also dann am 19. Jänner wird bei mir zu Gast sein Bernhard Reicher ein weiteres Mal. Ich freue mich sehr. Es geht um H.P. Lovecraft. Es wird dann noch wahrscheinlich ein zweiter Herr mit ihm mitkommen, der auch sich sehr eingehend mit dem Thema beschäftigt. Lovecraft, das Necronomicon, eher die dunkle Seite, aber wie gesagt, da gebe ich Krusty the Clown ganz recht. Man kann nichts wirklich ausschließen, aber ja. Man muss über alles reden, aber gewisse Dinge, weiß ich nicht, sind dann vielleicht doch zweimal zu überlegen, bevor man sie in die Welt hinausplärt. Aber natürlich, das kann jeder in den Cropcom schreiben, was er möchte. Gut. Ich bedanke mich bei allen für Ihr Interesse. Danke fürs Zuhören. Wir hören uns wieder am 19.01.2007. Schöne Weihnachten, schönes Neujahr, schönes neues Jahr. Macht es gut. Bis dann.